Well then, here we are. Well, you know, it's about time someone spoke up about Dead by Daylight, and I'm gonna be the one to do it. This video is gonna be pretty different from what I normally create. I consider myself an entertainer first, and my content usually reflects this, but I couldn't carry these thoughts inside my head anymore, so...
Honestly, I feel that.
This isn't about patch notes or how the game has changed over time. In fact, this is a video about how it hasn't changed. And as a result, it has hurt people and has ruined aspects of people's lives, including mine.
Oh, come on, Somber.
Video, I'm going to outline and explain exactly how Dead by Daylight is not only a poorly designed game,
not a good time for that, dude.
Far-reaching cultural impact is a net negative, both online and offline. I'm not creating this to stir up drama, as I realize that I too have been a negative contributor as well.
You guys knock that shit the fuck off.
To point out that the negativity is a byproduct of the gaming environment that behavior has created through the design, development, promotion, and growth of this game. To anybody who is new and doesn't know, yes, I have done my time. I've personally met and interacted with the game developers, I've been active with the cosplay community, and I've spent over 5,000 hours in this game. I've been rank 1 as both killer and survivor. I have prestige 3 on every survivor and a majority of the killers too. And I even built an entire community and Twitch stream around Dead by Daylight. So at this point, I feel justified in airing my feelings on the matter. I have experienced all the negative aspects of this game, from broken mechanics to the broken community. And when I look at it all collectively, the bad far outweighs whatever good traits this game might have. So, Part 1, game design and mechanics. When I first introduced this game to my friends, who aren't
holy frame rate,
the horror genre,
this isn't me, this is the video.
Disturbed them. And I didn't understand why at first. But I've come to realize that this game is desensitizing. Being in an environment, constantly watching your friends die, hearing them cry and scream, subconsciously numbs you to the sounds of human pain, if you want to accept that or not. After a while, you forget about how you're witnessing your friends being tortured, and you forget about how, as a survivor, you have to deliberately sacrifice your friends for your own arbitrary view of success.
She's not wrong about that now.
The element of teamwork takes a backseat to the player's own selfish perspective on what constitutes as a victory. The person who waits on the hatch for you to die when you're on first hook.
You can't really do that anymore.
Address the argument that Dead by Daylight is just a game, forehead. If you think about it, it isn't even a game. There isn't even a clearly defined win condition. If DBD is a game, then the definition that would be most relevant would be an activity that one engages in for amusement or fun. But if this is the case, why is there a ranking system? If the game were just for fun, then there would be no need to measure any element of skill among players. Why is there even an attempt to have a competitive scene? Behavior rationalizes the arbitrary nature
competitive scene's a joke, by the way,
by offering its player base a variety of Skinner boxes to distract them from the game's poor design. Pips, a constantly shifting and changing MMR system, tournaments involving the community's most popular players are examples of this. So with all of this in mind, let's talk about how bad this game is. DBD is historically glitchy.
Hold on. So you say that, Sullivan, but the thing is, in that, you're not the one doing the torturing, at least not to this extent. Now, you might be able to argue that the torture scene in like GTA 5 might be desensitizing, but this one, you're the one, if you're the killer, constantly doing it to the survivors, or if you're a survivor, you're constantly seeing it done or having it done to you. So I would say it's more desensitizing than that. So
gameplay loop is built around exploits. As a matter of fact,
yes,
the game is so ingrained with glitches.
I remember. Oh my god,
been
old Ormond
as part of knowing how to play the game well. That people who are new to the game are at a distinct disadvantage that is completely unrelated to perks or skill checks or looping.
Old
or
Macmillan?
Any fundamental
what the fuck?
Design mechanics. There's a learning curve in any game. That's to be expected. But for new developing players to have to utilize unintentional mechanics to keep a level playing field is a byproduct of poor design. Take body blocking, for example. There are perks explicitly designed to give the survivors the ability to slow down or mitigate a killer's ability to tunnel or relentlessly pursue the players. Body blocking, however, is a way that survivors can exploit the game's collision detection, hitboxes, and attack cooldown of killers to give them an unintended advantage. New players have absolutely no way to know about this.
Keep in mind, I think she's saying it was unattended at the time when it was discovered, but now it's obviously an intended mechanic.
Because it isn't a designed game mechanic. And as a result, it becomes the standard way to play as a survivor. This is just one quick example, but it's a simple way to show that as you play more and learn more, utilizing the glitches to your advantage becomes part of the experience. To further this point, the game and its competitive balance is built nearly entirely around gimmicks. There are things like slugging, manipulating iframes, camping, 99ing doors and generators, farming, 6-second swapping to hide items in pre-match lobby, juggling survivors for DS. Most of these gimmicks are
I remember doing that.
Circumvent the basic
Those were the days
of the gameplay loop. 99ing inhibits the ability for killers to chase players, even though completing generators and opening doors is a critical facet of the assigned goals of the gameplay. Slugging deliberately creates a game state in which killers can win by bypassing the design mechanics of being required to hook players 3 times. Slugging also opens up an element of toxicity in the game when used strategically, by literally incentivizing the killer to waste the time of the players. I'm not going to spend all of this time it would take showing why so many of these mechanics are broken and byproducts of exploits. Ask yourself, how much of your game skill is based upon things that aren't even mentioned in the tutorial or any of the game's help dialogues, descriptions? You might be surprised. Now that I've gotten the poor mechanical element out of the way, let's move on to the win condition, or better stated, the lack thereof. First, I want to define the Skinner box. Without going into too much detail, the Skinner box was a famous psychological experiment conducted on animals by B.F. Skinner. This study reveals all kinds of concepts about conditioning, grooming, addiction, the reward system in mammals, and the priority system of how the mind perceives rewards. Pips, kills, escapes, ranks, blood points, prestiges, tomes, perk levels, unlocking survivors and killers, cosmetics. All of these are various Skinner boxes that the game uses to keep its player base busy and feeling rewarded for the gameplay. Come on, Ellie, you might say. These mechanics are in every game on the planet these days. You can't just call out Dead by Daylight for this. And you would be right. However, instead of clearly defining how to win a game, behavior leaves it up to the player to decide what constitutes a win and a loss, therefore causing the players to create their own Skinner boxes and conditioning themselves to be addicted, therefore never having any reason to stop playing, or even to reach any kind of pinnacle of a goal. Reach rank 1, here's a new MMR system. Fill out your blood web, here's a bigger one. Hit level 50 on the blood web, prestige. Think about this. If there were fewer customization and cosmetic options, would you enjoy this game anywhere near as much? What would the game be if all the cosmetics were taken away? It's been said before that cosmetics are cheap, but content is expensive. The franchise is profitable, an investment. There's no core work to the game because that can't be monetized. It's more cost effective to not have to look objectively and fundamentally to change the game.
I don't think people understand how much the introduction of cosmetics into the game prolonged the lifespan of it. Couldn't that be said about most games though? I mean, yeah, no, it's true. And behavior does take advantage of their players. Absolutely. But that could be said about most games for sure. Yeah.
It's shallow. The only distinction between survivors is their physical appearance. Nothing individual about the makeup of the survivor characters as a whole, because you can mix and match any survivor with any perks or items in any way. There are numerous reward systems in this game that allow the player to metaphorically hook themselves. This is intentional. The game devs themselves have admitted to it in interviews and statements, going as far to tell people to simply not play if they don't like the game, rather than admitting the shortcomings to the game's approach. This dynamic sets up an extremely toxic culture and environment surrounding Dead by Daylight. More on that later. Part 2. Of course, there are veterans who might see this, who have played since the game's release. I've been playing for years. But think about it as a new player coming into the current
game. As a new player, it's disgusting.
Think of how overwhelming the perks, killers, survivor tomes, and items were, or could be, when you first encounter them. You're kind of dropped into an already thriving metagame and game structure. utterly clueless. You just kind of run around haphazardly with whatever base perks your character has.
Yep.
And there, before you know it, you're dead. You decide to keep trying to learn, and you watch other people play, and maybe you even make friends through some various communities of the game. However, what you don't realize is that you are baby hours. And you will be for some indeterminate amount of time until the community you've surrounded yourself with decides that you aren't. There are varying estimates onto how long being baby hours lasts. But the general consensus being that baby hours is at least your first 1,000 hours, with some people even saying that you're still a newbie to the game until you've played for upwards of 2,000 hours.
No, that's some true shit. The community is like that. Like, how many other games have you played where 1,000 hours in the game and people still consider you a baby player? Like, that's crazy. 1,000 hours is a huge time investment. EBD community is on fucking crack.
Multiplayer online games have onboarding and a ramp up of skill to
God,
be able to
I
be
miss old
competitive.
McMillan.
But Dead by Daylight is different. To put more simply, new players are conditioned to build an internal reward system that is equally as arbitrary as the game's non-existent win condition.
Yes.
This forces the player to rely on external factors, such as the community's validation and in-game Skinner boxes to feel any sense of reward from playing the game.
Eyes are closed. Community validation is... That's also some true shit, because, like, think about it from a killer perspective in 2018. Community validation meant you had to play in a certain way. And as long as you played in a certain way, it didn't matter if you lost every game. People would accept you. Community validation.
Do you see where I'm going with this? This, in turn, leaves new players vulnerable to all kinds of toxic behaviors, such as negging, utilizing mildly degrading comments to make people feel inferior to you, grooming, or using methods and tactics to prepare someone else to be emotionally reliant on you, or even overtly narcissistic behaviors, in which other players who are more established and skilled at the game surround themselves with lesser skilled players to make themselves look better in the game by comparison.
There's so many people at the top of the Twitch directory like that.
Of the CJ tag. These are all things that are kind of like an inside joke, right? It further creates...
Still haven't had a CJ tag performed on me.
If
Plenty of
you
attempts.
don't understand these ways of speaking of the techs and the strategies, right? You're either seen as baby hours or not in the loop. The game is more of a battle of personal ideologies towards one's own perception of desirable outcomes. This manifests itself in multiple ways in-game as well, because killers can elect to play the game however they want with no set goal or aim. A new player who decides to choose the player that they think looks the coolest could immediately be dropped into a game in which that specific killer may target them simply for their character of choice. Today, I hate Jake mains. Every Jake I see will die.
Honestly,
first.
fuck Jake
I will
mains.
Tunnel and kill.
Wait, is that why no one plays Jake anymore?
They will not play the game because I decided it so. Even though you won't pit.
See, I'm different. I tunnel everyone.
That's how you want to play that day. You win. If the game had more clearly defined goals and objectives, these types of biases would be at worst irrelevant or at least less common. I remember getting in an argument with my ex about this concept of honor among thieves.
Hold on. That we shouldn't say that, Socus Live. Like, it's generally, like, if you think about where that comes from, it's not a good place, so we should refrain from using that word. Like, we understand what you're saying, and that the same thing could be applied to any survivor that it's hard to see, but, you know, we shouldn't say that.
This was when a game-breaking bug had been accidentally patched into the game. Maybe you guys will remember this. It was when Wake Up, the Quentin perk, gave all actions a speed increase. And my ex got up on his projecting holy high horse.
I remember this.
With me and told me that it was immoral for me to use it knowing that it was bugged like that. I saw myself as simply using a perk to my advantage when the devs were the ones responsible for it being there in the first place. There was also a time in which the Killer Legion had an exploit to where you could stack slow mending onto deep wound. Do you guys remember this? If you guys have other examples of...
Well, there are other examples like the breakdown bug where hooks would be broken with breakdown and never respawn, and survivors used to bring no mither and there was nothing the killer could do. But but also the difference between the wake up bug, which was devastating in its own right. Like people don't understand how devastating that was, because a lot of people didn't play killer at that time. They chose not to because of that. But yeah, exactly. That's what I was getting to, Somber. Unlike the wake up bug and the breakdown bug, killers were banned for the Legion bug. They were banned for it. Behavior, they wouldn't roll back the patch, but they would ban people. In fact, I have it on good authority from people that I know that they retroactively banned people who did it before they announced it to be bannable.
Game-breaking bugs that gave an advantage to either killers or survivor for a certain amount of time. Put your examples in the comments, because I know there have been more. But anyway, I have a video that you can watch on this channel called the 4-minute mend time, where I remember that though. Literally 4 whole minutes simply to mend. This created an effectively impossible game state for survivors. The entire concept of playing the game ethically or morally just adds another layer of ambiguity and inconsistency to its premise. A homicidal killer versus 4 survivors out to survive. So you'd think that the killer would use anything in the game to kill them, and you'd think that the survivors would use anything in the game to survive. But instead, players get mad at each other for using these things rather than understanding that it's a problem with the game.
Yeah.
This problem is so pronounced in the community that some killers literally define themselves as non-toxic killer mains, and they rationalize their game decisions on how what they do will affect how their opponents feel about it.
That's true shit.
What?
That's true shit.
There's
And
so
that's
many important questions.
That is what created the fucking entitlement in this game. They react to the game based on how their opponents will feel about it. If their opponents aren't having fun, well, geez, no one's gonna like me. Like, it's crazy.
That surround that concept alone. For example,
never seen another game like it.
How do you define what is fun for your opponents? How do you create a game state that truly accounts for how your opponents feel? If there's no defined way to win.
Sullivan, you say this isn't new, but you've never seen it to the level that it is in Dead by Daylight. Dead by Daylight takes any other game that's actually had that problem, turns it up to 10 fucking thousand. It's crazy.
What is the problem with using perks and killers and items that may go against the spirit of the game? How could you have any sense of reward or accomplishment from the game if you aren't even acting in a way that gives you an idea of what a victory is? Why is attempting to achieve the stated goals of being a killer toxic in the first place? Just a thought. So what's the problem? Why is it bad for communities to form in order to aid new and developing players to the game? Enter behavior. As stated before, behavior has shown no willingness to form any kind of concrete win condition or even objectively desirable outcome
you're right,
for their
Sullivan.
player base to strive towards. Every achievement met by the player introduces either some new reward system or encourages the player to start the process over again from the beginning. Think about it. How much time have you personally spent simply clicking on the blood web? The only rewards you get are blood points and potentially iridescent shards. These systems provide you with cosmetics and items and perks to use in the game, but what else do they afford you as a player? With no determined win condition, all of these rewards are ultimately arbitrary, ultimately causing the player to seek out the sense of community that the core design of DBD encourages. Herein lies the biggest problem with Dead by Daylight. Many games have active online communities. Very rarely, however, are these communities forcibly formed as a byproduct of the design of the game. Behavior has taken multiple steps since the game's inception to deliberately integrate the game world, largely outside of the framework of the game itself. Before I delve too deeply into this topic, I want to define the term social entropy. Is the idea that social conflict and discord ultimately leads to some form of correction or resolution. You can see this clearly on display with regards to Dead by Daylight by spending 10 minutes in the official Discord or on the Reddit page. The game is constantly shifting in ways that create disdain and frustration within the community. There isn't a day that goes by in which someone isn't rationalizing how the game is unfairly balanced. If you look back on the evolution of the game, you can see a constant pendulum swing between survivors and killers trading power levels. From old school ruin and pop, or the addition of exhaustion, to the original decisive strike for survivors, making breakable walls, taking out pallets and windows. The game is constantly imbalanced in some way, and rather than proactively fixing the core game design that allows skills and perks and killers to be overpowered, behavior reactively nerfs or buffs elements of the game based on almost exclusively upon the amount of social entropy that the game state creates. This puts behavior in a position of great power, one in which the player base is completely reliant on the actions of the developer of the game and their decisions with regards to the direction of the game, and therefore the amount of entropy it creates. This social entropy is bad because when combined with the aforementioned emphasis on community that this game utilizes, it creates a very dangerous real-world dynamic in which people and sometimes entire communities are glorified or vilified. Another example of this going into the real world is people remembering who killers are, who tunneled them, 3 months ago, making long-term feuds against other players or streamers, toxic endgame chat. Or on the other hand, stream sniping big streamers just for that taste of validation from their chat seeing your name in their players list. It intentionally creates a social hierarchy.
Well, hold on. That's some true shit. I've literally had people on Twitter message me like, you tunneled me like fucking 16 years ago or something. Like, of course I'm exaggerating, but you tunneled me whenever the fuck. I tunnel everyone. I tunnel a lot of people. You're not fucking special, but holy shit if you're still mad about it a month later.
Which certain people are praised for their societal
it's not free to play.
Contributions towards the game culture at large. The most obvious and glaring example of this is the Fog Whisperer program. Through this program, Behavior has established a literal hierarchy of influencers and can define the entire philosophical framework around which they want the game to be perceived by the public. They pay mind to only the amount of clout, attention, and prestige that these people bring to Dead by Daylight, and then turn a blind eye to the ways that some of these people actually engage with the game's community at large.
It's crazy. That's also true. There are so many Fog Whispers. There's a couple I could name that I won't because I'm fucking classier than that, Keck. But like, there's so many Fog Whispers who go out of their way to bait toxicity in the community. Literally bait. Well, they literally on their streams admit to posting these bait tweets and shit just to piss people off. And these are Fog Whispers. These are representing Behavior's game. What the fuck?
This is not to say that everyone in the Fog Whisperers community is bad. In fact, I'm fond of some of the people in this group. But the greater point that I'm trying to make
it kind of is like a cult.
Behavior establishes a dynamic that promotes the idealization of people who acquiesce to the value systems that the devs deem worthy of praise. On the subject of hierarchy, there's in-game Twitch shirts for players with the right specifications. This proves that Behavior directly influences the public perception of the game, and they want the game to have a meta-narrative that expands beyond the game experience. The ultimate byproduct of this is that smaller communities built around Dead by Daylight are constantly popping up with the pervading notion that they can be equally relevant in the overarching real-world metagame. Take the Entitled Elite, for example. This is a team of DBD streamers who created a social structure that deliberately sits above other streamers. And those people can effectively predetermine who is and is not successful on the Twitch platform. It doesn't take much thought to see that this is...
No, I've been saying that for years. No, real talk though. That actually... Oh, I'm going to get a lot of flack for this. That used to be a thing. I'm not going to name names, but there are certain people who... And I've talked with a friend about this, who even if you played against them in a way they didn't like and you were a streamer, they'd make sure you never fucking made it. And effectively, they lost all that power when they fucked with a streamer that was bigger than them last year. I think you know who I'm talking about.
A dangerous dynamic that allows for corruption, favoritism, and grooming to thrive and propagate. It ultimately creates a trickle-down effect.
No, we're not talking shit in here, Soapy.
Micro communities with the goal and hope to be picked up by these types of groups. The irony of the self-appointed title aside,
I'll DM you after,
Brim. Power structure at play here, and again. Let me reiterate. This is not designed to call out any specific member of this group. They know me. I know them. We've spent real lifetime together. But I'm asking you as a viewer to look at this paradigm from the macro perspective and see the problem holistically. The concept and existence of this kind of community dynamic is a symptom and not the problem itself. When I first picked up DBD, some of the bigger names in the community told me that if I just stuck with DBD, I would get that illustrious check mark. I created my own Skinner box, and in that sense, DBD was the perfect avenue for it. Little did I know what I was getting myself into. I have personally seen the byproducts of this game's completely broken social dynamics.
So what she's saying there is true. If you look at my average, my average right now is between 40 and 60. Like, it varies. And it's getting a little higher every time I stream, which is great. And I've talked to a few friends like Vampire Toothy, who is a Twitch partner, who said, dude, if you keep doing this, 2022 is your year. You're going to get that check mark. I was being modest. I said 2023. He thinks 2022. Regardless, I know what I'm doing by doing this, and that what's going to happen is I'm going to be stuck on Dead by Daylight. And there's a very real chance, like, Dead by Daylight will get me partnered. It will. But there's also a very real chance that Dead by Daylight dies and my Twitch career ends. So, like, effectively, there's a chance.
My ability to do a successful flashlight
Oh, we're just watching and reacting to a video. I'm going to upload the reaction to YouTube.
save. Well,
Also, Shan, congrats on the fucking check mark, by the way.
led me into a relationship with someone who idolized me over it. The fact that, 360s, moonwalking, and flashlights were such a flex that I literally was able to form a partnership with someone through that dynamic when they didn't know anything else about me other than being able to perform a series of button presses accurately is crazy. Why does your ability to play a certain way create clout when that says nothing about your character? I have experienced everything from joining communities of the game to find that it was rampant with groomers looking
It's good to be back,
on
Shan.
young girls. There's no oversight to the sub-communities created as a
Real talk, if I hadn't left when I did to do life things, I probably would already have that check mark.
byproduct of this game, even though behavior created the very streaming communities that bolstered the game's success when it was new. So they piggybacked off the fact that they created the community but won't take responsibility for what happens in the community because of it. And it doesn't surprise me, honestly, hearing all of these stories of victimized girls on Twitter when I think back and realize that one of the devs literally followed me out of a bar when he knew I was drunk and harassed me. Yes, that happened. It was at a DVD after party that was put together, and this man feigned interest in me, pretending he didn't know what Dead by Daylight was, so pretended to be interested in what I did, and then revealed that he was a dev, trying to, make me feel inferior to him when he knew I was drunk. He then followed me out of the bar, insisting that I go to his hotel room with him, to the point where I had to fake doing something else on my phone to buy time to get an Uber home. Stalked, followed, and sexually harassed by a behavior employee.
Holy
I've
shit.
had big streamers, fog whisperers, actually approach me, and their partners attempt to have me join in for sexual acts with them. I've personally met and dated the most horrific person I have ever encountered in my entire life through a Dead by Daylight community.
No, Sokus, it ain't like that. It ain't like that.
An actual pedophile who was cheating on me with minors and using Dead by Daylight streams and discords to groom and prey on girls who played the game.
Just by nature of the fact that this community is full of people like that, it's not far-fetched at all. It's literally not. There's actual rapists who were banned from Twitch who now stream on fucking YouTube in the community. Like, the community's full of people like this, and it doesn't surprise me in the least.
I won't go into the graphic details of all these scenarios because that...
What would make a dev different than anyone else, though? Just because they're a dev? Yeah, they're a dev. They're also a dev for behavior. Like, you don't see that? Bro.
Isn't the point of this video.
But just to say she wants clout like that, I wouldn't... That's also a pretty big conclusion to jump to.
But I'm referencing them as proof that this kind of culture exists rampantly through the entirety of the DBD.
Whether or not you want to believe her at her word is your choice. It doesn't surprise me in the least. But whether or not you want to believe her is your choice, but you shouldn't also dismiss her.
Community, the dev team, and the social leaders included.
She doesn't seem fazed by it, probably because she is a female on the internet. And I don't want to sound like that guy, like I'm white knighting for everyone, but like, women deal with that a lot from every direction on the internet. So maybe she's just not fazed by it anymore. She was also a content creator for DBD. It's very possible that she's just not fazed by it.
I also know for an absolute fact that these cases are not isolated to only me. This happens all the time. Recently, things have been posted in waves on Twitter with people sharing experiences with this game's community. It is ignored and swept under the rug by behavior. They patently refuse to address any of it, and even though their game dynamic and social engineering is what ultimately created the structures that allow these kind of actions to propagate, this is the dark side that Dead by Daylight has created. Bad game mechanics aside, the entire format of the game is intentionally designed to foster toxicity and social entropy.
Very true. And Sokas, you say you never thought the game was this bad. So you want a little insight into it, Sokas, just a little bit. About a year and a half ago, it was just before the like, this is nothing compared to what she's talking about, but like, just how bad the community can be. About a year and a half ago, just before the Crotus Pren Asylum reworks, I was playing as Clown against the Claudette, and I had 8 stacks to save the best for last, and I was hitting her on the hook to hear his laugh. I wasn't doing it to be a dick, even though it could have come across that way. Anyways, that person comes to chat, and they tell me that not only will I be dead in a week, but my whole family, and that they were going to rape my girlfriend, and they continued to message me on Twitter about it. They said, I know you live in Montreal. That didn't faze me, because I honestly, I sit here and I wait for a fight, but I could see how that could make a lot of people uncomfortable. No, at the same time, Montreal is listed on my Steam profile, so that's not a big thing. But like, they were pretty fucking... No, it's listed on my Steam profile. Like, I'm not, whatever.
There's also a reason that
but it's terrible.
Competition never seems to exist for the game, at least for long. I'm sure, watching this video, you can think of a few games that have tried to compete with it that have failed. Behavior has cornered the market,
crazy, Brim,
and can cripple any potential competition as a result. Take Home Sweet Home Survive as an example. The game enjoyed relatively decent success when it released, like a decent potential competitor to...
Okay, Home Sweet Home actually sucked, though. Like, I'm sorry. It was terrible.
DBD. However, sure enough, as the game got a degree of traction, Dead by Daylight released the Trickster chapter, and all of the player base from Home Sweet Home effectively disappeared. I'm sure that someone watching this will simply call me a washed up streamer or a hater.
Okay, I thought you might have mentioned it, but like, I still... Okay, Home Sweet Home was bad. VHS is a lot of fun, and I still theorize, like, maybe like conspiracy theory, like... My inner fucking Alex Jones psycho is talking here. I still think behavior had something to do with their servers going down.
Gaslighting me. Get good. They'll try to pigeonhole me for some of my toxic behaviors in the past, and I accept that in all commentary. I accept it because I was hooked, just like all of you. This game is programmed and designed to manipulate and control you, and it works. There's a reason that a glorified hide-and-seek game with Freddy Krueger is one of the most popular games in the world. The streamers and the licensed killers are what keep the game alive. It's not even a game. It can't be won. It's a game within a game mentally, but it's a game without a game externally.
That's fucking mind-blowing.
Streamers that I would be successful if I just stuck with DBD. It was almost an uncontracted promise, right? From big streamers to small streamers to gain success if they just keep the game relevant. Therefore, keeping them relevant as well. They just benefit from small streamers keeping the game alive while they take most of the benefit from it. There's a reason why so many of the original streamers left Dead by Daylight and even have admitted that it's for mental health reasons. Even after they got custom cosmetics in place by the game devs, got early access to share with their communities, etc.
The thing is, Bar, a lot of the things that she's saying is actually accurate. Actually, pretty much everything she's saying is actually accurate. I saw one. Oh, I'm not. Hold on. I'm not going to say this until I finish the video.
You can't ignore that subconsciously something gets to them eventually. There have been so many people who said they wanted to leave the game and then just end up coming back to it when their viewer numbers start to drop or the game releases some new map or character content to stay relevant. Not to mention the pandering to whatever is the current social justice issue to keep up a guise of a community-driven development team. It's created by toxic people and it fosters a toxic community. It's the idea of pitting humans against each other. In summary, Dead by Daylight is a fundamentally broken game for many reasons, ranging from bad mechanics and design, a learning curve that conditions players, funneling them into toxic communities, to a power structure throughout the game's community that allows and even encourages predatory actions towards its players. I have personally witnessed friends of mine benefit, gaining partner on Twitch and being able to stream full-time, watching their viewership and their sub numbers soar. It's addicting. And that's why so many small streamers are stuck and trapped in it because they've seen it work for others. But after years of the repetitive, gruesome play style, it has made these streamers that found success through the game tired and want to move on to other things. And only the top of the top streamers have been able to keep a successful streaming career after leaving DBD. People who do manage to leave the game permanently very rarely have good things to say about it. If I ever play the game again, it will be in a custom game of people that all know each other in a non-toxic environment, but there are just so many better games to play. Anyway, I didn't make this video for clout or to try to have some grandiose return or even to get some sort of reciprocity for all the horrible things that have happened to me through this game. I gained a lot of my following through Dead by Daylight, and I think that my community and even the others who don't know me should try to be objective and see a side to this game that often gets laughed off or joked about when there are some serious things that have come from it. I'm tired of being judged by people because I have very real problems that I can point out about everything surrounding Dead by Daylight. And I'm tired of people I care about being hurt by this game and what it creates. If you have any issues with something that I had to say here, take a moment and look at yourself and really think about why you adamantly are trying to defend a game that has already profited.
Yeah, that's true, Shan Chan.
Doesn't care about you. It's profited off of you either by thousands of hours of your time, your money, or your emotional turmoil from something that happened, some sort of in-game feud that happened months ago. The biggest problem with the community at large is that so many people refuse to see Dead by Daylight for what it actually is, a massive Skinner box that preys on your reward centers in your brain, and rather than creating a feeling of reward for your accomplishments, it funnels you into the depravity of the community that the developers have intentionally created and fostered. It makes false promises of reward and popularity, only to put the player through its own ambiguous, unending, and ultimately destructive loop. Thanks for watching.
Wow. Okay. So that was a lot. So I must ask. Okay. Sorry. I must ask, what was your big problem with that Socus and Moonshiners? What did you think was stretched? And yes, this is absolutely one of those situations where I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. Because I've been playing this game for 9,000 hours. Everything she said, I've seen that shit happen. I've seen it fucking happen. Plus, why is the dev thing stretched though? Like, why do you feel that the dev thing is stretched? Because they're a dev? Yeah, and no one saw fucking Harvey Weinstein, a guy who fucking had everything. He had it made. He had control over so much shit. No one saw him doing what he did either, but he did it. You know, like it doesn't matter. Monsters are monsters. I mean, again, it's like I said, whether you choose to believe it, that's up to you. I just know it doesn't surprise me to hear it. Yep. That's true, Somber. That's also true. But like, but that's true though, Moonshiners. Like, how long have you been playing the game, Moonshiners? Like this game. So there was this guy, this YouTuber named B Dobbins. He used to call himself Batman Dobbins. He used to do videos like this, similar to this subject matter, like in terms of like how a developer mentally fucks with you, manipulates you. That's the word. English. Yeah, so believe me, after 9,000 hours, you'll feel it. But B Dobbins used to make videos about Call of Duty, about how Activision used to do that. They used to manipulate you into wanting to come back no matter how little fun you had one particular day. You couldn't explain why, but you wanted to keep going back and back and back because you knew there was always that chance. You knew there was always that chance where that one game you were going to be a fucking god. You were going to get every fucking headshot. You were going to kill everyone. You were going to get that fucking tactical nuke. You knew. And that's why you played. But that one part about that certain group of streamers, like I know people who were victim of that personally. And isn't that like 99% of games now? Not really. Not really. Like Elden Ring, for example, one of the most popular games that exists right now. It's a promise of if you're good enough, you can win. Whereas like Dead by Daylight is more like Call of Duty in that it doesn't matter if you're good enough. If you have the right shit, eventually you're going to get that one game that's going to make you feel like you snorted a fucking 6-foot line of cocaine and now you want more. That's what it's going to do. I don't want to say it totally out loud, Bar. I'll talk to you about it after, but yeah, I can't really disagree with anything she said. But let's just say, Bar, that certain group of people no longer have the power to control certain things after they fucked with a certain someone who I know you don't like. So again, is it worth it? Absolutely. I am unbreakable, not the perk, by the way. I'm way better than that. Or I'm going to send you a DM real quick. No, I'm unbreakable in that I cannot... Me and Cole are very similar, as in we will not bend to a certain fucking agenda. We'll play the game to win. We're not going to feel the pressure of a community that's going to let it control us just so we can be successful. And we're determined to beat that. Yeah, well, that was fucking interesting. That was a lot. Floof! What the fuck? How you doing, buddy? Okay. So, I saw a tweet referencing this video about, 28 minutes or 20, 30, whatever, half an hour just to cry that you didn't have Twitch shirts. That person's fucking dumb. And I'm actually going to tweet to that person that they're fucking dumb. Because she had no problem with not having Twitch shirts. She didn't even mention it in a negative way. So, yeah, they obviously didn't even watch the video. All she said was some people get Twitch shirts. Did not mention not getting them. It's crazy. That's crazy, though. And it's funny that one of the ones who was posting on Twitter about it, about that one comment about a certain group of people not being true, was one of the ones who rode the coattails, if I can say so. But yeah, cool. Obviously, very cool. Anything to discredit someone who has a different opinion than you in the DBD community. Love that. Oh yeah, Lanius, this community is a fucking cesspool of cockery, of fucking toxic assholes. And I'm not just talking about like in-game anger toxic. I'm talking about like there's literally fucking rapists who still play the game, who were banned from Twitch, who now stream on YouTube. That's some real shit. No, the community's ass. And she's also extremely right about the Fog Whisperer program. Like, not every Fog Whisperer is bad, like she said, but there are some of them that are just that go out of their way to try and bait toxicity just so they can fucking play victim after. It's crazy. No, that's the worst part. Like all these conflicts, and that's the one thing she didn't actually mention. All these conflicts within the community, the most toxic shit you can imagine, 99% of it, with the exception of like sexually assaulting people and shit like that happens in the community with like rapists and pedos and shit. With the exception of those, it's all fucking boiling down to fucking Survivor v Killer. How fucking stupid is that? Oh my God, dude.